Hello, Martin. Welcome to episode 38. There's that wry smile again.
I'm just raring to go to illuminate some rounds.
Illuminate rounds. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Still with the same carpet. You didn't change after the feedback.
Yes, because I was a little bit hurt. I mean, I've got a beautiful ancient paisley carpet there that gives me migraines every time I'm going up or down the stairs.
It's worked for you for the last 40 years. I don't see why it shouldn't work for the next 40 years.
I think it's an actual proper biohazard. I mean, if the authorities knew about this, they wouldn't be worried about COVID. They'd be here.
And what colour was it originally?
God knows. God knows. It was. It had been here a long time when I bought the house nearly 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Enough of your. So anyway, you're in the hallway. You're not changing. You didn't move house. There was a lot of concern about you and your house. But anyway.
Yes.
We're going to talk about losing today. We are experts in this field.
Considerable experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. Our patrons obviously are excited. So we're going to say thank you to the new patrons. You know two of them. I know two of them.
Yeah.
So Phil Draper, excellent player, Phil. I always thought he came as a pair with Tim Bunce.
Me too.
But apparently they don't live together anymore.
They don't even live close to each other.
I think Phil's in Norway now, isn't he? I think he went to Norway.
Well, the last time I saw Phil, he was working in Norway, but that was quite a long time ago. I haven't been in touch with Phil. Well, I never was really in touch with Phil. I'd see him at tournaments, but Tim, I used to play Tim. I don't think Tim plays now.
You drove him to a hospital, not literally, but you drove him into a hospital.
Yeah, I think we shared that story, haven't we? He's dying when he thank heavens he didn't die. His potentially last action was to ring me and to try and tell me that he couldn't play ASL that night because he was having a stroke. Yeah. He was in the back of an ambulance. Yeah. Bless him. Yeah.
He probably had his start kit pulled out or something, playing the first responders. Yeah. Richard Dagnall as well. Richard, thank you very much for your patronage. Richard nearly ended up being the CEO of Games Workshop, which is a story that he'll tell you one day. Yeah. Could have, should have, would have. Who knows? And Doug Blagger as well. Thank you, Doug. We don't know Doug, but we'd love to get to know Doug. So Doug, thank you again for your patronage as well. So all three guys, thank you. They are all in the invite lists for the 2021 tournament. The invites are going out, have gone out, and will go out for the rest of the week. So you're gonna do the drawing of that. You enjoy pairing up people, Martin. Look at that.
The illuminating round matchmaking service.
Yes, exactly. All complaints go towards you, Martin, for any pairings that people didn't like. There's also big news. We have had an anonymous donor. We obviously know who the donor is, but it would like to remain anonymous, who has donated a whole heap of ASL goodies. They are coming from outside of this customs territory, so I have no idea how long they're going to take, or but they'll be here eventually, and they are going to be some great stuff for us to give away. There's some fantastic stuff. I'm very, very excited about this. So to the person who knows who they are, thank you very much. We appreciate that ridiculously. You patrons are going to benefit from this as well. We're going to give away stuff. We're going to put it into things, including, and there's a rule book with all the it's a brand new rule book with all the new bits and pieces in that we can give away to a newbie. And one of the things we're going to ask people to do is to nominate a newbie. This was our donor's idea, to nominate a newbie for who should receive this rule book. Give us a reason why they should be nominated, and maybe we'll put a poll up on the last. If we get 3 nominations, and we'll let the patrons decide who that goes to. But if you have an idea, that's great. Obviously, the receiver doesn't have to be a patron or anything like that. It's just about nominating someone to get that rule book. We'll have all sorts of prizes, all sorts of stuff coming up. Better than the minstrels, although I'm not so sure. I've had no feedback. I've had no feedback on that. Not yet. I don't know if those minstrels have got there yet. I don't know. They've gone to. Yeah. I've sent them to Canada, to I think Finland, to America. They've gone all around the world.
Feedback at all?
I think the customs guys are.
I don't think they liked them. That's
and you know what? I even have to put little notes saying, "Suck, don't crunch," because I can't have people crunching these. But anyway, Martin, talk to us about your recent game.
Yes, losing a game.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I thought this was quite an interesting subject is that I know I've come across quite a few people who really struggle with losing in this game sometimes. Not necessarily bad losers, but it's just that they find it difficult. Like from their personal point of view, it's not great feeling for them to be losing it. And there have been times when I felt a little bit like that. I think it can be a difficult game sometimes to lose. I've seen your personal morale drooping in games when things aren't going your way. And I kind of was just wondering, what is it about this game that makes it kind of like that for some people, perhaps all of us sometimes. I can take a defeat in a game of Risk or Monopoly without absolutely makes no difference whatsoever. It makes no difference. Ludo makes no difference. I don't mind. I'm not going to throw the pieces across the table.
Right.
Something about this game, I think, makes it very difficult for some people to lose. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
So I think for me, there's a couple of things. So the first thing is, obviously, we put in a lot of time and mental energy into a game, and that's one of the things. But you could say the same thing about a long game of Risk or a long game of Monopoly or anything like that, which, like you say, we can shrug off. I think a lot of us define our personality is probably a bit too strong, but we certainly we associate a strong part of our personality with ASL. It's kind of part of who we are. And when we lose at that, that's a bit harder to take than losing at a game of Snap or whatever, because it's not really who we are. So I can certainly see that, and I think the other side of it is when we there's also a little bit of frustration if you play a 5-hour game, and we all know that sometimes our partners or our friends kind of think this is a bit crazy that we're playing such a long amount of time. To then come back and say, "Oh, I lost," they kind of feel like they make you feel bad. I remember, in a previous relationship where you kind of felt like a bit bad for saying I've spent the whole day away from the kids and stuff like that, and then and I lost. Then you almost feel like it's a bad thing to
define it, does it? That doesn't define it, but that's all that the person you're talking to kind of knows.
Exactly. And you've mentioned as well, it's not necessarily just the one game, but when we started playing, your personal morale is much better than my personal. I've not seen you get particularly grouchy about a game ever. And I think my grouchiness is you only ever see it because we're so friendly, and we can. I hate to think that anyone saw me kind of very, very grouchy. There was one game in a particular tournament I remember getting a bit salty about, but that's
Didn't you take 2 or 3 months off the game?
Probably, yeah. I think I did, and
there were several reasons for that. I think there were reasons why you didn't enjoy that game.
Yes, exactly that. And that's a conversation for another time, which we'll have that conversation about. Difficult times across the board. It's not fun sometimes, but there was nothing to that, and I did lose that game. And that was frustrating, but for different reasons. But you mentioned, I think we started playing, and you just got back into the game, and obviously I was just a couple of steps ahead of you. But in chess, in ASL, that's huge, because every time we're both playing, we're both kind of increasing our knowledge, and you never quite catch up.
Yeah.
So I think it was crazy. It was at least 10 games we went without.
It was. I think it was. I remember it being 36 games consecutively that you won, which was a lot. And some of those games were closer than others, And I remember sort of looking back over them and thinking, they weren't all total massive defeats. And it helped that I won the second ever game against you.
Right.
Only looking back, it was because you conceded. You probably had other things on your mind, I think, on the day. But nonetheless, that helped.
No.
But, I mean, the thing is, I knew that I was learning, but there's players out there. If I played Toby every week, I probably very easily could go 36-0 against a player like that.
Yeah.
And there are other players. There are plenty of players like that. Yeah.
So do you think that people worry about losing because they worry that the other person is not enjoying it? Because in every one of those 36 games, there wasn't one game where I thought, well, that was a waste of my time.
Well, I played a game against against Jerry Proudfoot last week, and I mean, I have no idea. I mean, he's a very, very gracious player. I played not particularly well. He absolutely smashed me to pieces, and it felt to me like I didn't give him a good game. So it doesn't often occur to me, but it kind of did occur to me on that particular occasion. So I don't know, maybe.
When that's happened for me on the other side, so when I've won a game like that, and people have said, and one of a good one was one of our patrons, the sports, Dave Marrakesh from the Kansas City guys. We've had 3 games. He's destroyed me on 2 of them, and I destroyed him on 1 of them. It's just the games where I did well. I think, well, I must have played well. I've put everything in practice, and it's all come together. This is the moment I've lived for. This is what I've kind of. I don't ever think you've spoiled my day by not playing well enough.
You see, I think I agree with that. I think because I quite enjoy ASL, but it comes in different flavours, doesn't it? It comes in. There's a flavour of very high challenge and a very, very difficult, hard-fought games. There's the walkovers. But I enjoy them all. And I enjoy getting thrashed as well. That's this enjoyment there too. That's not to say there haven't been games I haven't enjoyed, but on the whole, I enjoy all of the flavours of ASL games. I do wonder if sometimes people use it as a way of escaping from the sort of the problems that you have in your own life, and obviously the problems in your own life include the things that you feel vulnerable about because you weren't a great father or whatever it is that's you're not that great at your job or whatever it is, and you can escape from that into a hobby like ASL, and maybe if you just keep getting keep getting beaten, it doesn't feel like you're doing as well as you want to. You're failing to escape from the thing that that the hobbies tended to kind of get you away from. I don't know, because I've certainly been through like times when my life's not going well and I'm kind of feeling a bit down about myself, and at those times I kind of don't want to be losing all the time. Do you see what I mean? I don't want those things complementing each other in a negative way. Isn't great. I've wondered that, and I've also wondered if deep down, every man wished he was a soldier, really, and if he had been, he'd have been a really good one, and if he'd have been in charge, if he'd have been Rommel or Montgomery or Patton or whoever it is, he'd have been the best general out there. And some of us are playing soldiers, we're and so somewhere in our brain we're recognizing, you're recognizing you wouldn't have been a very good one, perhaps.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's interesting.
I don't know.
Do you think there's any difference between how the game goes in terms of whether it's a last minute, last turn, last close combat loss, or whether it was a slow bleed out to the end where you started badly and it got worse through it?
Yeah. No, I mean, the second of those two to me is a more difficult game. So I don't think I even consider a game that's that close, and you really don't know at that last close combat or whatever that last little run that you've got to jump into the victory condition buildings, and you're going to pass the pin task check or not to win or lose the game. I don't even consider them wins or losers. Do you know what I mean? It's such a good game right to the very last moment.
Now, you don't log your games particularly, do you? You don't. I know you've mentally logged them all, but you don't log them. I wonder if...
Do you know what? I've decided I'm going to.
Okay.
I was talking to Jerry about this. I'm going to log them from now on.
Okay. All right. Because I wonder if it's easier just to drop it and forget all about it if you don't log it. And if you do log it, it's kind of like a permanent record on you,
Chiseled in stone.
Yes. Yeah.
For them to find 4,000 years from now, this guy that lost.
They'll still be talking about that victory in Urban Guerrillas. the last turn. So we've both been at tournaments where there have been consolation prizes for the last place in a tournament. I remember my very first tournament. I was competing for the booby prize, as it were, and I happened to win that last game. So therefore, didn't win the prize. So told everybody that the only time I had a chance to win a prize, I managed to somehow do it. But the prize was nice. It was a £25 voucher. Now, recently we've been at a tournament where the last place player didn't get a particularly nice prize. They got, I think it was a set of Monopoly, and that felt a bit mean to me. And they took it in very good spirit, so there was no problems. But I don't think I'd have enjoyed that point if I'd have been given again Monopoly because it kind of felt like, well, this isn't this isn't the game for you. Play something else, and especially because that person was, is a good sport and is a nice person and is only too happy to lose. He's a good, he's a nice guy and takes it well. But I think there is something to be said for, being aware that it can, other people don't have that personal morale that he did. And we've got to be a little bit careful about, celebrating losses in a particular way.
Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, something like a tournament, there is always somebody at the bottom, isn't there? I mean, or at least the way that the tournament used to be structured in this was in Blackpool, wasn't it? I think so, it was the old That you get that. I mean, of course, you don't have to say who the person who came last is. You don't have to mark it, do you? But if you do mark it, you've got to, I think, give it some thought how you do it in a way that's that person's going to enjoy as well. And I think a nice-ish prize is nice and people being nice. I mean, I think the idea with Monopoly is that it's kind of a bit of a joke, but there is definitely the danger of that person reading into that a little bit of a not that subtle message, really, which you're driving home from a long weekend.
Yeah.
Nothing else to think about. Going, why do they give me Monopoly?
It's true.
Yeah.
What about? And you made this good point. What about people at the bottom of a ladder? So, like a permanent, like in terms of a long-running internet ladder, or I think is it the Crusader ladder for the UK, and their area ratings as well. There's always someone. Everyone focuses on the top, and that's great because that's where the focus should be. But there is this kind of question about, well, and now, kids football, they don't print league tables because they don't want kids to feel like this is, bad to be at the bottom or anything like that. Now, I'm not suggesting people's mental fortitude isn't strong enough to cope being down there, but it can't be a nice warm feeling to be at the bottom of that ladder. Do you think that they shouldn't show it, or should only show the top sections, or is it?
But that's kind of patronising, isn't it? That's a bit kind of like, well, you haven't done very well, so we're not going to publish yours or whatever.
Right.
It's I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have that, aren't you? What would be interesting to know is, would people be put off from going to tournaments and being involved in the kind of community because they're likely to be towards the bottom of the of the score? And you would like to think not, but I don't know whether that's true or not.
We both know someone who is quite close to that end of the table, and they brought it up to me as part of why they were unhappy with their standard of play. And I'd never thought about the fact that was anything other than, it doesn't matter, everybody cares about the top guys, really, because that's the thing, and not to make a deal about the people towards the bottom. But it is, and as I was told, you start off always towards the bottom because in tournament play you're just not, if you first turn up the first tournament, you're generally going to lose your first few games. The ironic thing is those players that are at the bottom of those ladders, if they were to take this game to their local games club or to their buddy who'd never played ASL, they would beat them 20 times out of 20 to start with. They're so much better than anybody else who has played the game, or hasn't played the game, sorry. But of course, it's only relative to these people who are playing, who are active.
Yeah. And in fact, those people are higher than all the people, if there are any, that don't go to tournaments because they don't want to be at the bottom of the ladder. That's not inconceivable, is it? We don't know who doesn't go because of it. And it's very difficult, isn't it? Because I'm sure lots of people quite like having a ladder. I'm not bothered whether they have a ladder or not. That doesn't make any difference to me. I'm not interested, especially in it. It's a passing interest who's at the top. That's a passing interest. But if they didn't have them at all, it wouldn't bother me. But I'm sure some people enjoy them. And if people enjoy them, I suppose we should have them. But then how do you deal with that problem? If I'm honest, I don't really have an answer to it.
Yeah,
but I think there is a risk that people are put off by it.
Yeah. Because you don't see it like in tennis or, whatever. You don't see the world rankings for the worst tennis player who's ever played. I don't think anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you do.
Yeah.
But maybe FIFA rankings you do. I mean, for the football, there are.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably find out who is the lowest seeded player in a particular event if you had a mind to find it out. But they're not going to be the headline of the news article on Wimbledon, are they?
So maybe one of the issues is that it doesn't really reset. Like the ratings and the ladder sets and things like that. They don't reset. with football, not necessarily the FIFA rankings, but with football, league table, start of the season, everyone can put behind, and it just starts again, doesn't it? And you can think, well, okay, this season.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and you can't do that with this, can you? You come to the next tournament with your last rating, which you might be able to fractionally increase if things go well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the best you can hope for, isn't it?
Right.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Have you played anybody that's been, or what who's been? Maybe it's me, but who's been the most salty in a game that you've played, or has anyone been a particularly bad loser, or have you had bad experiences?
Do you know what? I don't think I can't think of an experience, but I've seen people who really wanted to win, and I've seen people get depressed a bit and down. Actually, do you know what I have? This is a true story. A guy locally got in touch with me. Really nice guy. He came over. We played a game. He'd never played before, but he'd studied the rules. He knew sort of how to play. And I won the game, and I was teaching him a few things and everything. And it was great. And he went away. He came back a few weeks later. We had another game. We were playing it, and we were only really at the end of, I don't know, term 1 or something like that. And he said, "You know what? I'm really sorry. I just feel sick. I'm going to go home." And it was sometime after that he told me that actually he went home because he realised, even at the end of term 1, that he wouldn't win.
Wow.
So he just couldn't take it. And he apologised and he said, it's
wow.
He wasn't quite sure what to say about it really, but that's how he felt. That's how strongly he felt about it. And it was his second game. It was the second game at the time. I was a relatively, I was a very frequent player at the time. So I'd have been, top of my game.
Yes,
not perhaps exactly, but you know what I mean. I was playing quite well. So so I have found people like that.
It's interesting because ASL, although there is a nod to the idea of balance in terms of you can pick an unbalanced scenario as we've done with Toby, but the balance is very binary, isn't it? It really is. Okay, we'll take the balance for the Germans or take the balance for the Russians or play an unbalanced scenario. And that's it. Very rarely. I heard, I think it was Melvin who'd played, what was it, the scenario we played against Toby, where he was offering some ridiculous 8 extra squads or some huge number of extra squads and still won that. But there is a question around, it's not that easy. Like if you look at Go has that amazing ability to, you can kind of add give them extra counters, if you like, at the start of the game to offset an advantage. And in golf, you can set, you place your handicap and we can have a fair game no matter how good and bad you are. But ASL is really not like that in as much as it's a very set system for what people can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we talked about conceding. So it seemed to be quite a concession around trying to concede as late as possible. Just play out games. So maybe we should say to people that seems to be like, nobody seems to mind people playing. I heard a story in chess of a guy who was so badly losing but wouldn't concede that the player who was winning so easily proceeded to promote as many possible pawns as possible and then put them onto, so each pawn was made as a knight or a bishop or a queen or whatever, and then he proceeded to move all these pawns back to the original starting square to try and get himself a starting position again, and then proceeded to beat him again just to kind of prove the point. Now, no one's doing that in ASL. We're enjoying. So the message really is play these games through as long as you can. Obviously, when it's mathematically not possible, but and there is that whole point about you'll never get those amazing stories if you don't try.
It's true.
And we had it a little bit with Toby when we threw that leader into the half squad just to see what we could do, and we got the double one, and we still lost the game. But those are the stories that you're going to remember. Nobody cares about the time you won a close combat when you were 3-1 favour.
And actually, do you know what? Even in an ordinary situation where you're beaten quite easily or quite convincingly, if you think about that as sort of Hollywood World War war film, that's the exciting stuff, isn't it? That's when they're they're jumping in the trenches and they're overrunning the positions.
Yeah,
that's actually kind of quite exciting play, even though it just so happens you're on the losing side.
I remember,
see what happens.
I remember when we were playing Urban Guerrillas, and I thought, as you mentioned, I thought I was lost, and I had that one squad that just sat there in the middle of the road, and it kind of held you up for one turn, and I was almost doing it out of desperation, like, okay, well, I can't do very much here. I'm going to lose this. You never know, and I appreciate at the end of the last turn, it's not quite the same as that, but you never know when games are going to switch around through some crazy stroke of luck, And also you get to watch players play well at the end as well. So if there's a good player and they are doing a good job of playing, and they're taking on, dismantling your defences, it's good to watch that.
It's good to watch it. Yeah, it's very good to watch. So that's a great way best way to learn. And actually, I used to play Dave Schofield years ago, and he was a much more experienced player than me, and he used to coach me a little bit. And one of the things he said was don't give in, because it's actually, if you start looking at that end game situation that you're in, even though it's one where you're most likely going to lose, you learn an awful lot about how to do the end game to try and kind of snatch victories.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, very often it's like you say, like a half squad or something like that, or even a 6+1 wounded leader upstairs in a building wins you the game. It doesn't have to be that kind of you'd have felt that you completely dominated the battlefield. You don't have to do that. You just literally have to fulfill the victory conditions.
There's one other side of this as well. That was two things I want to talk about. But one is, if you always resign games that are lost, like let's say, for example, we have that habit where we do that, you and I, the games where you've got a sneaky way to win that you've realised, that if you don't resign in those games, I've got to realise that you must be up to something, because otherwise you would have resigned. So there is a side of things that says, well, okay, keep your cards close to your chest and play games out, because there may be, and definitely, we've even played players that have thrown away hip units or have not taken the hip units when they could, and we're still worrying about them. Or we've played players being aware of that, because it's a sneaky tactic you can do, and it's I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's something you can do to kind of keep your opponent off the scent, if you like. The other side of it is, what about forfeits? So I've heard of games where people have resigned midway through because they've set up illegally and it's only just been realised. There's been games that I'm sure you've heard about. When is it right to forfeit a game?
Okay, so the example we were talking about before is two players, Sean and Brendan, at double one in a tournament. Brendan drove a half track up to a wall and fired at one of Sean's units. The unit broke. They carried on playing, and at the end, Brendan won the game. And then Brendan remembered that he'd fired his bow machine guns across the wall that he couldn't have done. If he hadn't fired them, this unit wouldn't have broken. They didn't seem to think that it was an especially impactful on the game. But Brendan forfeited the game, even though he'd actually won it, and it was a tournament game.
Yep.
And I remember thinking at the time, was that the right thing to do? And it kind of felt a little bit to me like most games, you're going to make mistakes with the rules. Some of them are going to probably be to your advantage, and some of them are going to be against you. And because of that, I probably wouldn't have forfeited it in that situation. And I think I said to you earlier, like if me and you forfeited every game that we made a mistake in, like we wouldn't get past the the win dice roll check or something on the first turn.
Right.
So I kind of felt Brendan was extraordinarily gentlemanly about that, far more perhaps than I would. But there are situations where perhaps it's right.
Right. So on that instance, I think the reason why I think that's harsh is because in theory both players had a chance to catch that. There are instances where, for example, if you hit something in an illegal place, or if you've hit something and you reveal it later on in the game, but a unit has subsequently run through that hex and you should have pointed it out and you haven't done, and suddenly you've gained a big advantage. There is that, and we've mentioned before. I think the game there was John O'Reilly played against the late Ian Daglish, and they were playing a game, and John had won the game, and I came up to him at the end and said, where did you put the gun? And John has pointed it out. And I think we realised it was an illegal spot, and John, being the true gentleman, just resigned it there. And then Ian, being the true gentleman, wouldn't accept the resignation because he felt like he'd lost it fair and square. They both didn't know who could win the game. I don't know. I walked away very quietly. Sorry, guys.
Came with chaos in the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
So this is a really good example of, like, because as you say, Sean could have picked up the mistake that Brendan had made in the game that I played. In the game that with John O'Reilly and Ian Daglish, Ian couldn't have picked up that John had made that mistake
unless at the start, as soon as it fires, he could have done. So you could, but then what do you do? Do you take the? And I think Martin Myers told us a game. He played with Trevor, where he'd set up illegally a gun, and at that point he had a problem where he was okay. Well, just take the gun off. Just take it off.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that like the rule book covers illegally placing things, doesn't it? So I think certainly, me and you playing, we sometimes will say, "Oh, well, don't worry, where would you have put it or whatever." But if you've illegally placed a unit, I think the rules say you forfeit that unit. So I think that would be, in that situation, I wouldn't forfeit the game, but I would forfeit the unit. And I think it might very well be that I'd end up conceding a couple of turns later and it became obvious which way the game was going.
Right.
It might be quite a significant loss, mightn't it?
That's it. Yeah. There is that tricky thing. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So you're not you don't worry at all about losing. I know you're a very good loser. No joke. All jokes aside, you're a good loser. And I think my resolution is certainly to make sure that I enjoy every game, win, lose or draw. I don't draw enough games. I don't know about you. There's not enough draws, and that's the other thing. You can't get a draw. There's never. Yeah. Sometimes like football, chess, whatever. There's always a way out for a draw, and you can kind of feel like it's a loss or a win, no matter what. But ASL, it's
it's always win or lose. And it's interesting because before Squad Leader, the original Squad Leader, I used to play Panzerblitz and Panzer Leader. Do you remember those games?
Yeah.
And they always had levels of victory. You had marginal victories, decisive victories, and all that kind of stuff. And I can't remember if you could have a draw or not, but I think you always had a margin of victory.
Right.
And that's a way of softening the blow a little bit for some games, isn't it?
It softens the blow in one way, but it accentuates the loss when you've had a decisive victory.
True. Yeah. Decisive defeat. Yeah.
Pyrrhic victories are the ones Pyrrhic. I think it's Pyrrhic. But yeah, excellent. All right then. Well, that's good. Let's see who's going to lose. Now you're going to show us the game, the Squad Bleeder game.
Yeah.
Tell us before. So Squad Bleeder, talk to us about that.
So Squad Bleeder is a very interesting idea. You don't know precisely what it is that your opponent is trying to do in terms of victory conditions, because you've kind of got each of you got kind of three ways to win. There's a process by which you select the boards that you're going to play on, and you get an equal number of points that you can use to buy units from a menu, from a selection. So you don't know what force you're fighting against. You do know the board because you would have picked those together, but you don't know. Yeah, you don't know what your opponent's sort of like plan is, etc. What kind of forces they've brought on. They can buy HIP, which obviously is costly, but that makes it even more fog of war. You can bring units on turn one, or you can set up on board. If you bring them on turn one, they're a little bit cheaper, so you get more. And again, the opponent perhaps a little bit uncertain what's happening. What I find difficult about them is it's not at all clear whether you're attacking or defending. Whereas in ASL, there's that mindset, isn't there? You're defending. You set up as the defender, you set up as the attacker. In this, it's not clear because they're kind of like meeting. It's kind of like a meeting engagement.
All right, Martin. So let's talk about the Squad Bleeder game that you played with Jerry, and this is an example of how to get beaten soundly. The game's going to be playing in the background, as we can see. Do you want to talk us a bit about Squad Bleeder and the scenario itself and how it went?
Yeah. So Squad Bleeder is a system for scenarios where there's a lot that you don't know, because you don't know what your opponent has picked in terms of units, and you don't know what boards at the beginning you're going to be playing on, and there's a system for deciding who's going to be first and who's going to be second. So they're very replayable scenarios, because you're playing on different terrain and you could be having completely different units and different forces. That's the basic idea of Squad Bleeder.
And we've got Jerry here, who is the French attacking at the bottom. Correct. And you're the Germans defending. Well, not defending. You're both kind of in a meeting engagement, aren't you?
It's a meeting engagement, and actually, I found that quite a difficult thing to get my head around, because I'm used to being either an attacker or a defender, and here you're kind of neither and both, and it was quite difficult to think through how you manage that. Yeah.
And so what went wrong then? What was the? Because it looks like you're getting a bit of a thrashing there.
Absolutely getting a pasting, isn't it? Well, there's a few like obvious kind of like lessons, I think, here. One of them was I didn't really do my homework well enough, and I feel a bit bad about that. But I reckon that my tanks, the German tanks, would be a good match for the French tanks, because we've got we don't have platoon movement. The Germans are able to move freely. They're also better at accuracy. I also bought -1 leaders for the best of the tanks. Now I knew that the French tanks were quite difficult to penetrate, but I kind of thought on balance the Germans would be getting a couple of hits to every French hit, and I thought I could win the tank battle. What I failed to realise is that they have armour piercing on a 7, which is awful.
Right.
It didn't have a huge impact on the game because the first tank mired in the stream, never got out of it, and the next 2 tanks both malfunctioned their guns, which didn't help either. Okay. So it didn't really matter whether I went for AP or HE. I went for HE to kind of get the acquisition. I thought, well, I got a good chance of getting hits with the AP afterwards, but no, they malfunctioned their guns.
Right.
So that didn't go well. So there's an element of poor luck there. But my basic plan of rushing forward in the first turn, I was quite lucky. Got away with being caught in the open and passing all the morale checks. And I got into that wood between the 2 boards in some strength and started to try to sort of dig in. Really, the plan was that the tanks would be behind them and keeping them supported. But the tanks didn't do a great job, and the French absolutely swarmed the guys there.
Yeah.
I started to take a lot of casualties in terms of tanks. I think I do destroy 1 German tank with a machine gun. Sorry, 1 French tank with a machine gun with a. Oh no, it was a close combat. So that was good, but nothing like as many as I was losing. And then of course, as I began to break in that woods surrounded by tanks, they surrendered. Every squad's worth 4 victory points. I think at one point the whole group surrendered at sort of 10 points in one go.
Do you have a feeling for what the score was? Because you kind of resigned on turn 3.
Yes.
Do you have an idea what the score was at the time?
I think I knew at the time. I can't remember now what the score was.
Right. But presumably it wasn't very close, though.
It wasn't very close, no.
So,
no. I mean, Jerry sort of felt, I could still destroy tanks and get some points, but there was such a mountain to climb. I think it would have been very, very difficult. Lost nearly all my infantry.
Right.
I'm on the defensive. He's on my board in force. To win, I've got to kind of push him off the board and cause great casualties to him. So I thought it would be better to resign at that point.
Yeah. Looks like a tough one.
It was humbling. Dave. Yeah, it was humbling. Yeah.
What would you do differently in the same scenario?
I wouldn't play Jerry because he's so much better than me. I don't mean that. I'd love to play Jerry. He's a great guy, but I think I would have thought more carefully about a more cautious defensive game. I think.
Right.
I mean, I was on a great board for defence. Because most of the boards are quite open. This board I've got a lot of high TM terrain. I've got the stream protecting one flank.
Yeah.
I think I might have thought much more defensively, and I also might have thought about doing something a bit cheeky, like maybe buying something fast that could perhaps race off the board. Although I think actually Jerry had set up to defend against that, really, because he had quite a lot of sort of guns hit across the line. I thought if you could sneak even just 1 half track off, you've won, unless your opponent attacks.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean? That might be an interesting thing. But I've never really had a clear strategy in mind that was ever likely to be effective, unfortunately.
It's funny because you just reminded me, I think, of a comment I made when we played Squad Bleeder, in that, in a way, I don't mind when a scenario is unbalanced as published. What I mind is when I unbalance it myself. And I think if I make the wrong purchases, I feel like I've unbalanced the scenario and it's my fault. I can't blame anybody else. I guess it's nicer to win a game like that, but it's
absolutely. Yeah. I think what kind of upset, because I enjoy playing, but what I think I feel bad about is I don't feel like I gave Jerry a really good game in terms of a challenging game for him, and I think a part of the reason for that was because I hadn't spent the time looking carefully at the tanks.
Right.
I mean, that was not the only reason for me to lose, but I kind of feel like you've let an opponent down a little bit if you've not done the homework, and then they get an easy victory. But you know what? I quite enjoy easy victories. I hope Jerry enjoyed this.
He does, I'm sure. Excellent. All right, very good, very good. Well, it looked like an intense scenario, and well played, Jerry.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
well played.
yeah.
Right. Okay, then moving on. So, all right. So let's talk about the scenario then.
Yeah.
So we've got me as the SS coming down the road. We've got some Greeks defending the high ground, and some British waiting to come on right at the bottom. So, what's this scenario all about, Martin?
Okay, so this is a sort of it almost looks like an ambush going on. Really, you've got Greeks up in these sort of mountains. You can see where they're set up. Now there is cliffs around those hills. So I suppose the Germans can climb it. They can climb the cliffs, but they're being channeled, aren't they, down this road? The victory conditions are that the Germans have to have more victory points than the Allies. Both sides get a point for controlling the road hexes that have the V in there. You can see it's very, very long. It goes all the way down. So I suppose the SS might easily capture the first few. It's going to be very difficult for them to capture the ones at the far end. And I suppose how far they get decides who wins. But to make it even harder, the Allies also get victory points for CVP. Not for the vehicle. The vehicle doesn't count, but everything else counts the CVP. So the Allies have an additional way of achieving points other than control of the road.
Right. And that's what makes this one feel really... Now this scenario came out fairly balanced, and I think if we look at the current balance, it's 17-14. It just seems slightly in favour of the British, but I mean, next to nothing. So no complaints there in terms of the balance. But if you look at this, so okay, clearly the German force is pretty strong.
Yes.
The Germans come on at the start with about nine squads, but the defenders have the equivalent of 12 squads. Certainly they can't stand toe to toe against the Germans, and they're split into two halves. But one of the issues here is you've got Germans approaching open ground and defending against the high ground. Now you chose as the Greeks to kind of have a reverse hill defense, didn't you? You didn't want to be facing the front of the hills, which made a lot of sense. I've got a lot of time, so that's the good thing. But if you can delay me, the longer you delay me, the quicker, if you like, the British turn up to help defend. Now you don't have any hip guns or anything, do you? There's nothing.
No, but what I do have is hip foxholes.
Yes.
Shall I actually just reveal those for the purposes of this?
Yeah, sure.
I can easily do that. Hang on. So there's one there, one there, and one there.
Right.
That makes sense, doesn't it? To reveal those for the purpose of the game. Obviously, the units are in the foxholes, even though they don't look like it. I thought that the reverse slope thing made total sense. I think that because you've got very high morale. I've got green troops. I felt I needed to kind of hang on to those troops as long as possible. I guess I thought, well, if you go straight down the middle and you don't try to climb up the cliffs, you're moving into a sort of a kill zone really around T5, S7, U7. Yeah,
that's it. So my plan really was to actually scale the cliffs. I thought if I can get up on those cliffs and attack you, get some breaks, quick early breaks, and then try to take the high ground to defend against the British as they came on. So let's have a look and see exactly what goes on. So a bit of pre-game concealment, and I'm off and running straight away. So there's some... What we did here was we took the V's off the road to signify that the Germans control of the road. So we've also got the points up here as well, so we can start to show how many points everybody's got.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the Allies start with all the points for the road, and each road, the Allies lose a point, and the Germans gain a point.
It's a double swing.
Yes, exactly. So the initial advance went well. I thought, okay,
it's interesting. You could afford to take some chances with the vehicle, can't you? Because it doesn't count as points. You've been given it to throw in and force the Greeks to take some chances.
Exactly. The plan was to push through and then have the motorcycles go last to try to get past anything that had first fired at the end. That was the kind of the plan here.
Yeah.
So a bit of advancing, ready for the hill climb, which is going to be for turn 2.
Yeah.
So some good advancing fire shots straight away. Broke your guys.
In fact, I think it destroyed them. I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then you got your own back.
But I'm not going to last long. I think once you start to get some good shots at me.
Yeah.
A little bit of luck with that one, but yeah.
Yeah. So turn 2. We're already coming down. And again, I felt relatively comfortable here. We've got.
I wasn't feeling particularly confident. You know, I thought you were doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got up on the hill here.
In some strength.
Yes. Yeah, the climbing was a lot easier than I expected.
Yeah, climbing isn't desperately difficult.
Yeah.
If no one's shooting at you.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Easy for us to say as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You did a bit of repositioning.
Yeah.
Now, the British are coming on. Is it turn 5? Turn 4 or 5? Turn 3.
And the British are strong. Right. The British can go toe to toe. They've got some 8 morale guys. They've got a -1 leader.
Yeah.
Unlike the Greeks. Yeah.
So here's you setting your guys up.
Yeah. Because what I didn't really want to see was you completely rolling over the Greeks.
Right.
And putting yourself in a position where you were then defending against my British attack kind of thing.
Right. Now, what's challenging about this is that every lost unit, or worse still for the Germans, captured unit, is really quite painful. So that was the issue.
I don't think prisoners count double.
They don't.
Oh, it says the Allies also amass CVP normally for German infantry. Our prisoners are non-applicable for CVP.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every casualty, every break is double expensive, though, isn't it? Because you're losing a unit, but you're losing CVP. Yeah.
And your guys can be thrown away in a way. You don't lose any points for losing yours.
Yeah.
That's right. So
you see, well, wiping me out once you're in position. I just melt.
Yeah, both my motorcycle guys were knocked off the bikes.
Yeah.
And you also destroyed the half track as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had a little bit of luck over. Well, it was quite handy, I think, going berserk actually.
Right. Yes.
And then winning the close combat. Yeah. So it is beginning to become a clash between the British and the SS.
That's right.
As you're able to bring your forces out of the melee, if you like, with the Greeks.
Exactly. Yeah. So at this point, I've pretty much mopped up the Greek. There was pretty much nothing left up here. We've got
there's an encircled squad in 15Q5, isn't there? And there's a squad in W7.
Squad of 6+1.
The problem, I think, the thing is that they're holding up a significant portion of your force as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just to mop them up.
Yeah. But I managed to encircle them. And at this point, 18-19. So
it's still close, though, isn't it?
It was close, wasn't it? The problem being that I can't get very many more road hexes. So at this point, I was kind of thinking, well, if I can just get one more road hex, that swings it round. And again, had I got points for your units, I thought I'd have been fine. But having no points and losing points anytime I lose a unit meant that the Greeks can kind of be you can use them very carelessly, can't you? You can just charge them into close combat in an attempt to get lucky and things.
I think the thing is that weak force that was left behind with the Greeks has managed to hold on and not. One just broken, but
right.
they're all broken now. But they lasted longer than they
Yes.
should have done.
Really. And you got a break on the squad up here as well on the top of the hill, which caused another problem.
Yeah.
So I have to bring another squad back round to try and sort it out.
Yeah.
But at this point, so the score here, so I've gone back down again. So you're at 21 points now, with a couple of turns left.
Definitely still in the balance, yeah.
Yeah. The issue being as well, if your guy up here in the 15x7, if they get away and manage to somehow, capture a road hex somewhere, anywhere at the top, I have to be a bit careful about that. But the problem is now the British are so strong here, they can afford to push onto the road hexes. These road hexes here are available to be captured again up in R1, Q1, Q10.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is the issue that you're going to come around the back, and I can't really protect all of them. My idea was obviously on my last turn I can push forward, but you get the last turn.
That's right.
And that means that again you can run.
And it's nice to know that your opponent on their last turn has to run into open ground.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, because you also know the score and you can't lose points at that point. It's very difficult for the Germans to figure out where they're going to get to. Now, I don't think Stu did a recap of this scenario for the game of the month. I didn't see anything here. So you can see I kind of get a final bit of extra territory here.
Yeah. And I think, so you're strictly in the lead, aren't you, at the...
it's at 20. Yeah, this is 21-20. Yeah, exactly. At this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, trying to defend any of that Q1 R1 road hexes is very difficult. I mean, I had the machine gun in the middle of the road, so I figure I can lay a fire lane and maybe get around that. But you're.
But it's gone to the final turn, isn't it? So it goes to my final turn.
Let's have a look. Yeah, this is your turn 6.
I mean, half the force has already broken, hasn't it, on that front line? And then it turns out one of them's only a half squad.
Yes.
So your strongest unit is in T1, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. And that's the machine gun then that decides not to be able to put the fire line down, mainly because he's in open ground of two of your squads. So I managed to break 2 of them here. But at this point, I think I managed to. I think what happens here is my guys break in T1, and at that point I can't stop you kind of coming around both sides. So we call it a victory for the British there. So it was a interesting game. It felt tough on as always because I lost, so it always feels tough.
Yeah,
always feels tough. But did you like the scenario?
Yeah, very unusual. I mean, I didn't think I'd enjoy it because I don't like it when they have these sort of artificial lines created that you can't go through there or whatever. But actually, it was much more porous than perhaps either of us thought at first with the glyphs.
Yeah.
And actually, I kind of thought you'd scale them. I thought that was your best approach. I thought just running everything down the middle would have been suicidal without an attack over the hilltops as well. And in the end, it was very close. Yeah. No, I certainly enjoyed playing it.
Okay, well played. Yeah, it was a good game. So you've stuck one back on me there. Next week we are going to play something from the Roma pack. I think we said we would try and do something like that. So we'll pick a scenario from there. If anyone's got any suggestions from the Roma pack of scenarios that we should play, we'll certainly have a look at that. We are lining up our live game as well that we're going to do at some point. So you're going to give me some dates, Martin. I think we're going to look for sometime in March probably.
Yeah.
So that's that. We have lots of other news. So here we go. So the pack that we were sent by the anonymous supporter of the channel has arrived. So thank you again to the person who knows who they are. We have an amazing amount of stuff. To go through it, we're going to talk about. We've got a couple of the Winter Offensive bonus packs. These are all going to be reversed for you guys, but trust me, they're the right way around. We have a couple of Commissar packs from the March Madness guys. We also have a bonus pack 8. Now the bonus packs, the Winter Offensive bonus packs, don't have the boards with them, so these are perfect for vassal play, but it hasn't got the additional board that comes with it. We've got a copy of the Operations magazine. I think it's issue 51 and 50. We also have a Rally Points. We've got volume 5 of the Rally Points. We've got volume 16 of the Schwerpunkt, which Schwerpunkts are amazing. Love the Schwerpunkt stuff. So that's going to make a great Patreon prize. We also have, pulling out of all the stuff, this issue 50 of the Operations magazine, which we'll be giving away. Another Commissar pack. We have the Great War. This is a project that Ian Dalglish was working on. I'm aware of, obviously prior to his death, and Critical Hit published this in conjunction with John Gaworski. So we've got the Critical Hit Great War packs. We'll give that out as a pair to a Patreon supporter, and we've also got 3 of the American Civil War packs. It's kind of like an ASL Critical Hit kind of combination for the Civil War. So each week, each issue episode, we're going to be giving one of those away to a Patreon. So any level that you're in the draw, and we're going to do a draw today for that. Finally, we also have a brand new, in shrink wrapped, perfectly bound. Yeah, we all love this second edition rulebook with all the latest stuff. This is including the Hacker Palais dividers and everything like that. So great.
I might have to buy that now because I know I can't win it.
You can't win it. You can't win it. Now this we think is a great option for a newbie. If you have a newcomer that you'd like to nominate to try to win this, let us know. Get us in touch. You don't have to be a Patreon. They don't have to be a Patreon. We're just going to give this away to a newbie. If there's a few there, then we'll do a random draw or something. Or Martin, you can be the tiebreaker if you like.
Sure.
So thank you again. So today we're going to give away the Winter Offensive pack and bonus pack 4 and a Commissar pack. So Martin, I need a number. We've got 54 Patreons right now. In between our first recording and this recording, Jim Hoxton as well. Jim Hoxton has just become a patron. Now Jim is the ASL superstar, ASL Scenario Archive superstar for data entry. He puts in so much work and has become a patron as well. So thank you, Jim. That's your support and your help is always appreciated. So Martin, I need a number from 1 to 54. This is for a Commissar pack and a bonus pack number 4.
Okay.
And when you are ready,
I'm ready. I've got a number 1 as the minimum, and I've got a maximum of 54, and I'm pressing generate now.
Go for it.
2.
Number 2. Okay, that
those guys with the low numbers don't often come up, do they?
Okay, so Andrew Beaton, this is going to you, sir. So thank you for your support. We'll be doing another one of these next time as well. So again, thank you guys for all of your support. The numbers jump up and down. Sometimes people's patrons drop off and then they resubscribe again. So that's why sometimes we go from 44 or something to 54 without necessarily giving another 10 names. But if we haven't mentioned you and you feel like you need to mention, let us know. It's much appreciated. So Martin, before we sign off, we're going to have to give an update to the Illuminating Rounds 2021 tournament. Currently, as it stands, and we think we're pretty much onto the final numbers, we have 18 players in that. Remember, we're playing for a hand-printed board, so I'm quite excited how you are. Now, to bring that number down to a nice 16, we've obviously got to have a preliminary round. You and I are the sacrificial lambs. We are in that tournament, in that initial round, and we have drawn 2 random players to play against us. I've been drawn against Tom Rapetti. You've been drawn up against Rob McGinley. So what we're going to say for this tournament is our opponents can choose the scenario. They can choose the side. We'll play whatever they want. And we'll do that for next month. So by the start of March, the tournament will start proper. This is the preliminary round where we are fighting in it. Are you nervous?
Well, I've got a great record in these tournaments.
Unblemished. It's a perfect record. All right. So we'll look out for that game, and we'll let you guys know how that gets on next time as well. Well, at least the start of it. Good stuff. Martin, what else have we got to talk about?
I thought that was it. I thought that was it. I thought we've done pretty well. We ticked it all off.
We have done it.
I've got a list here. I've got ticked everything.
You're very organised.
You wanted to talk about your personal problems, but we were going to do that after.
We haven't got a long enough time. All right, Martin. Well, okay. Until next week, thank you, and well played on the Monastir Gap. We're going to go away and try and pick a Roma scenario now, and we'll try and get that out for you guys as soon as we can. Until then, take care. Bye.